Daniel Levy is about to complete the puzzle, apparently, because he's bringing in a new director of football. I wonder if that brings the fans back on side. They've appointed Johan Langer in their vacant position of director of football role. You weren't impressed with this, were you? When I revealed it to you earlier on today, you were like, who is this guy?
Yeah, I've done a bit more research since then, in fairness. So thanks.
Oh, that was good.
Thanks for outing me. But obviously, he did well at Villa and can be credited with the development and the spotting of quite a few of the Villa players that are serving them so well under Unai Emery. So, no, I'm more positive about it. It was interesting. I saw a tweet earlier about Paratici and his role in the current Tottenham team. And actually, if you look at the signings that he brought to the football club, a lot of them are now being utilised really well by Postecoglou. I don't think it was necessarily part of Spurs' plan to get rid of Paratici, was it?
No, they wouldn't have done that unless he was given that 30-month sentence to leave football. He wasn't allowed. He's not allowed to operate in football for 30 months as a result of involvements previous to his career in England. But technical director Johan Langer is going to join after November the 1st. He's going to have responsibility for recruitment, analytics and talent identification across our senior and academy teams, they say. He's going to report to Scott Munn, who is the I think he's called the football director, is he? Scott Munn, or he's certainly the
fellow Australian, isn't he?
Yeah, he is a fellow Australian. To who? Postecoglou. Okay, yeah, not Langer. Langer's Danish. He was in charge at Copenhagen, spent 6 years there before moving to Villa in 2020.
Chief Football Officer was the title you were looking for, by the way.
Chief Football Officer, yes. Okay, yeah, at least I didn't get his nationality wrong. Was responsible for signing Ollie Watkins, Matt Cash and Emi Martinez. But I think one of the reasons that he seems so perfect for Daniel Levy is because I don't know, and this is one of the reasons why I think you reacted the way you did when we were talking about it this morning, is no one ever hears from him. Yeah. So he keeps his head down, does his work in the background, is a relative success, and Daniel Levy, I think, will like that a little bit more than having a rather over-the-top
Are you saying he's a yes man?
No, I just think that sometimes and it's interesting, I was speaking to Ita Karanka about this the other day. We were talking after a show that we did, and he was talking about the differences in different sporting directors. And the best thing about Monchi that he was talking about was the fact that Monchi keeps under the radar, doesn't necessarily do too many interviews. I know that he's done more of them recently in recent years, but his success was built on being very quiet and keeping out of the limelight.
That wasn't what Antonio Conte wanted, though, was it? Do you remember his rant when he said, why is it always me answering these questions? Why did the sporting director never have to sit in front of the media?
And the chairman, he mentioned the chairman as well, yeah.
I see his point, actually, because the role of a manager has changed almost beyond recognition, even, in the last decade or so, because they are more head coaches now, aren't they? In fact, a lot of clubs don't even call their manager the manager. They call him a head coach.
Yeah, there's very few that do.
Yeah, and they do a lot of their work on the training ground, which obviously if you look at Sir Alex Ferguson, famously, he didn't take the training, largely left it to his assistants and work more on other aspects of the football club. So important to get the right sporting director because recruitment is the be-all and end-all, isn't it? And
always has been, though. And it always makes me laugh. I remember, years ago, just in other businesses, getting the best people into your business is so much more important than anything. Once you've got a clear direction of where you want to go and what you're going to do, your processes are all great. But if you've got nobody to do the work and to do it properly and not good enough quality people, you're never going to get a great result. It's as simple as that. Recruitment is everything.
Yeah, and if you look at Liverpool, the success they had, because I think we're going to talk about Jurgen Klopp later in the programme as well, if not today, then tomorrow. Michael Edwards, who was the sporting director, who again really kept under the radar. I mean, we knew him when he was in charge of Prozone, that new technology that came in at Portsmouth.
Yeah, he used to sit on the little gantry, didn't he, in front of the South Stand, and he had his little laptop, and everyone was like, "Oh, who's the keys for that laptop? A laptop? And what's this all about?"
Especially when you're working with Harry Redknapp, by the way. That was newfangled technology. But he didn't really give interviews, but he was a big part in Liverpool's success in terms of recruiting the players that serve them so well.
Yeah, and seemingly got out at a time where Liverpool's recruitment then decided, went in a different direction. And it's been a little bit...
And hasn't come back in, has he?
No, he hasn't come back in yet, no. And they've had to hire differently, haven't they, this summer? They've got a sort of temporary sporting director at this moment in time. And it is such a key position. I think it sort of allows the manager to get on with his work. Thomas Tuchel, remember, famously had a massive problem when Todd Boehly came into the football club because he was saying there is no sporting director to do the day-to-day work in recruitment and getting people in, and he was almost having to recommend players. And then Todd Boehly famously appointed himself as the interim sporting
that went well.
director, and then obviously it's a hire three, which also didn't really work well.
It's still the big issue at Manchester United as well, isn't it? I mean, there are so many issues at that football club, but for me, they haven't gone out and got a top-class sporting director. They left the recruitment this summer largely, it seemed, to Erik ten Hag.
Well, John Murtagh is there, and he's highly thought of.
Well, have a look at the signings and the lack of ability to get players off the wage bill. I think most United fans would agree they don't have the best in class in that role.
So were you a little bit jealous then of the way that Tottenham have gone around about their business in terms of their hiring, their recruitment, their planning for the future?
Yeah, I think I am. And again, I'm sitting in the Simon chair, and we know that he's been a defender of Daniel Levy. I don't think Daniel Levy is as bad a chairman as some would make out. I think if you look at the stadium, it is the best in the country. He was the brains,
best in Europe at least.
Yeah, he was the brains behind that. He got, on his watch, Tottenham have got to a Champions League final. I think that's easily forgotten as well. That doesn't happen every day of the week. He kept Harry Kane for as long as he possibly could until it became impossible to sell him. And he's tried to appoint managers. Didn't work out, but when he hired Jose Mourinho, he thought he'd deliver a trophy. When he hired Antonio Conte, he thought he'd change the culture and deliver a trophy. To his credit, he's admitted his mistakes. I think he said publicly, I was wrong to appoint those managers. He's torn up that particular part of the plan. He's invested in Postecoglou, and so far it's working. I think there's far worse chairmen in the Premier League than Daniel Levy. So
far it's working. It's important not to get too carried away at this stage of the season?
Yeah, of course, because they've had a relatively favourable fixture list so far. Tottenham, their key players have managed to stay injury-free, but you can't take away from the fact that Postecoglou, in a very short space of time, has changed the direction of travel. He's changed the playing style. He's changed the whole atmosphere at that magnificent stadium. And the future looks a lot brighter for Spurs now than at this stage last year.
And a lot of people are pointing out the fact that actually got the identical record from last season, which they have. So they've got the same number of points as they did at this stage last season. The difference being, of course, is that they're playing with a much more
expansive style
of football, progressive style of football, but more importantly, they've deserved to win the matches that they've won. They may have been fortunate in the Liverpool match, but they haven't been fortunate in the others. They've shown some resilience to come back in matches, but I wouldn't say they've had good fortune in matches. They were awful to watch last year. They were a cure for insomnia at times. They let everybody else have the ball. They allowed teams to come onto them. They showed no willing of their own. This season it's completely different. It's almost like a complete reverse. And I think actually, sometimes when you go into a football club, if you try to sort of just build on what was already there, or you try to sort of add to, incrementally change what's going on, you don't get the full effect of your newfound appointment. Whereas if you go in and you just go, do you know what? We used to let people come onto us. Now we're going to go onto them and completely change the mindset of people in the club. The difference, the contrast is so stark that it carries so many more people with you, especially if it works.
And it's really difficult to do that because we've seen far more examples of managers going into a club, trying to tear up the playing style, trying to mould the squad, which clearly is not his squad yet because he's still evolving it, to the way that they want to play, and it backfires. The fact that Tottenham players have invested in this so much, and obviously I spoke to James Maddison after the North London derby, they could have won at Arsenal. Richarlison's deflected shot right at the end could easily have crept in, and he said we're not Spursy anymore, and some people suggested that they were getting carried away and that actually they've not really beaten anybody yet, but it does feel like the players really believe in this manager, and from our dealings with him, he's a good guy as well, isn't he, Postecoglou?
Yeah, we had an interesting discussion on Saturday in which we also talked about the Dolly Parton music as well, which was quite fun. He's a good sort of sparring partner, isn't he? He sort of have a bit of a laugh and a joke with you, and he'll also expand on what he believes his team should be doing. You mentioned there about some managers go in, they try to do it, and it doesn't always work. Well, Erik ten Hag, actually, in his first couple of games as the Manchester United boss, he went in saying we're going to completely change how Manchester United operate, and then he had to back off and go, we can't do that because you lot aren't able to do it. Yeah. And he still hasn't been able to bring that style wholly into the club, has he?
And that probably tells you more about the characters or lack of in the Manchester United dressing room than it does with the dressing room that Postecoglou
does that worry you, though? It's a long time that he hasn't been able to turn it. Is it the characters in the dressing room, or is it the fact that the plan isn't clear? What is it?
Well, it's probably a combination of the two. And I know you think I'm, Ten Hag's biggest fanboy, but I do think he's made mistakes.
You did nickname him the little ball genius.
Yeah, maybe I got
you stopped calling him that now, by the way.
No, I didn't. I called him it on Saturday night.
He's gone 180 again.
But I think he has made mistakes at the start of this season. Actually, I was talking to Andy Townsend on breakfast this morning, and his biggest concern for Manchester United is a lack of identity in terms of the playing
but that's
style.
it. I can't. That's one of the things that we complained about for a lot of last year was the fact that you look at some of the top teams and you can see exactly how they're trying to play. You can see those well choreographed moves. You haven't got that with Manchester United. It's frustrating to watch because you want to see them competing. You want to see them at the top end of the table. You want to see them mounting a challenge. The more teams that mount a challenge to Manchester City, the better, because it makes the league more competitive. I mean, look, Tottenham and Arsenal may well end up taking up the baton, but it might mean that Manchester United get left behind.
I think Tottenham are a problem, not just for Manchester United, but for Chelsea as well. Liverpool.
Don't worry about Chelsea. If they finish in the top half, then a good job.
Liverpool, I think, will be okay, but I'm not sure any of us envisaged, especially after they lost arguably their greatest ever player, certainly their greatest ever goal scorer, Harry Kane. After they lost him, got a new manager. Did any of us really expect Postecoglou to turn Tottenham into top 4 contenders this soon? I'm not sure we did.
Not necessarily with the recruitment that they've done, because they haven't really changed that much. I keep saying this. You know, Vicario, a doggy was already there for a start. He was just on loan. He's been brilliant. He's going to play for Italy next week. So Vicario's really the main, a big signing. Maddison and Van der Ven. Everybody else was there.
Yeah. But in terms of signings of the summer, and obviously it's very early in the season, you make a good case for Declan Rice and what we saw at the weekend. Van der Ven's right up there, isn't he? I mean, you look how dodgy Tottenham were defensively last season, bearing in mind they had this pragmatic coach who was supposed to be the master of defending. Van der Ven has been absolutely superb at the heart of that back line.
He's so quick. And that's really important to have pace in a back line, especially when you want to press and you want to be progressive. If you've got that speed across the ground, and he's got that speed across the ground. He was the fastest central defender in the Bundesliga last season, and we've already seen examples of that this campaign. And the nifty little finish at the weekend, which he also admits he probably should just hit with his right foot. But it looked prettier to do it the other way.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.